समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
For almost 25 hours now, we've been watching this hijacked train, the situation of the hijacked train in Pakistan's Balochistan province. In the heart of Balochistan, if you see the train and the pictures and the video, in fact, the militants, insurgents, terrorists, whatever you call them, one person's insurgent can be the other person's terrorist, can be another person's militant, and someone else's freedom fighter, right? So you can choose your description. However, this train has been hijacked in the middle of nowhere because Balochistan is a very empty province. It's a very empty province in Pakistan. So empty that its population density is just 43 people per square kilometer. Of that also, it is concentrated in some urban centers. It has a population of 1.9 crore, for example, of which about one-third, in fact, trifle over one-third lives in the city of Quetta. The rest of it is so khali, so empty. So, in fact, one or two, Khuzdar, Quetta, then Khuzdar, these urban centers will distort that per square kilometer population density. The rest of it is really empty. As I speak, you will see the video that Baloch Liberation Army has released. It's a 1 minute 23-second video that is running on one side of the screen as I am speaking. See the video. The first thing it tells you is how empty the area is. How empty the area is. Now you can find other areas which are empty. Say Arunachal Pradesh in India. Arunachal Pradesh also has very low population density, in fact much less than Balochistan. If Balochistan is 47, Arunachal Pradesh is just about 17. But any picture of Arunachal Pradesh from anywhere will tell you there is a lot of vegetation, there are lots of rivers, rivulets, falls, mountains. There are some mountains in Balochistan, shallow mountains, but mostly it's a desert. How lonely and how desolate the place is, one, you can see in the video that's running on the side, released by the militants, by the hijackers. They show, for example, the train running, then a blast taking place which stops the train because blast blows up the rail track, train can't go any further. Then the militants descend from the hills overlooking this part of the rail track and then force the passengers out of the train. Now that you see, it is very clear. So you can see that far and wide there is nothing available. It's very difficult to reach there. There are no roads on which an army unit could come in or a rescue can come in. It is very tough for people to come stealthily because there is no cover. If Pakistani army, as they've tried now, used helicopter gunships or drones, that has its own challenges. Again, landing troops by helicopter also carries risks. So it is a very difficult situation, made much tougher by the desolate nature of the terrain. First of all, the terrain is desolate. In fact, I've mentioned this to you earlier, but once again, the next time you fly westward from India, and your plane goes over Pakistan, if you are flying from Delhi, for example, just about an hour, stop looking at a movie, stop looking at your devices, right, or playing with your laptop or iPad or anything, or even reading a newspaper. Look out if it's daytime. If you're on a daytime flight, after about an hour and a quarter, you will see nothing. You will see nothing on the ground, just a brown expanse of nothing, just sand, hardly any vegetation and hardly any habitation. In fact, it looks like you are going over an endless empty patch of land. That is Balochistan. Balochistan is a very large state. It's the largest state in Pakistan. And you know what? If it was a state in all of India, the combined India, it would still be the largest state, because today in India, the largest state is Rajasthan, which has an area of 3,42,000 square kilometers. Balochistan has an area of 3,50,000 square kilometers with a population of just 1.9 crore people, of which I would say about 55 to 60 lakh are Baloch. Now, Baloch are the largest single group in Balochistan, but they are not a majority, because over time, Pakistani establishments, particularly the army, because mostly Pakistan has been controlled by the army directly, as under Musharraf, Zia, Yahya Khan, Ayub Khan, etc., or indirectly, as is the case now. They followed the policy of settling people from outside Balochistan into the state, hoping that will, by outnumbering the Baloch population, that will control the separatist problem. Balochistan has had a history of insurgencies. This phase started in 2006 August, after the assassination of Akbar Bukti. Akbar Bukti was a senior leader of the Baloch, former governor, very highly respected man and very, very well educated man, very anglicized, very well educated. And he commanded real loyalty from his own tribe at least. That's the Bukti tribe. He was killed while he was hiding in a cave. He had been in mainstream politics, he had contested elections, he was very much a Pakistani, but he fell out with Musharraf. He hid in a cave, and there Musharraf's special forces or troops killed him by using an anti-tank missile, by firing anti-tank missiles inside the cave. Later they said, oh, there was a fire, an explosive went off. That was nonsense. He was killed. That sparked a fresh round of insurgency in Balochistan, the fifth round, which is going on even now. It's almost about to complete its second decade. This train hijack is merely a most dramatic turn in this insurgency. As we speak, the insurgents have released a large number of people. They say they've released all the civilians, all the Baloch civilians, women and children. So 43 women, 11 children, about 46 other men. But the government claims that they fought with the insurgents and had these people released. Insurgents say nothing of the sort. They are very good with their communication. Their communication is coming out very quickly. They also have a spokesperson with the very likely name of Baloch Khan, right? It could be any Khan who calls himself Baloch Khan, because after all, he's the spokesperson of Baloch Liberation Army. And they say that they are holding more than 200 Pakistanis hostage, and most of these are army people, including one serving major. Now, you might say this is a fantasy, but if you look at what is coming out of Balochistan, see this screenshot from Balochistan Post. Balochistan Post has published a list, a passenger list of army people traveling, and you can see economy class and their names and their ranks, rifleman so and so, havaldar so and so, etc., etc. So the names are all there. BLA is saying, unless you release a certain number of prisoners of ours, Baloch prisoners that Pakistan Army, Pakistan government have, we will execute these people. A 48-hour ultimatum has been given, and as we speak, the government forces or the army, the Pakistani army, has not been able to engage the Baloch militants directly, although the government claims that they've killed 30 of them. The Baloch deny any of them has been killed. However, the fact is that the government forces are not there in strength, and these hostages are, these military hostages in particular, are with BLA. So that is one important turn. Now, this important turn has to be seen in context. The story will unfold over the next day or maybe a couple of days, and we'll see what happens. But this story has to be put in context. To understand the context, two things have happened lately. One, the Baloch groups. All the Baloch groups traditionally have been operating in penny pockets, each on their own. As happens in many of these insurgencies, they are tribal loyalties. The Baloch are not one tribe. There is a larger tribe, but under that there are Mengals, they are Maris, they are Buktis, right? There are many tribes. Just as you say among the Nagas. Among the Nagas, there are Angamis, Semas, Konyaks, Aos, Lothas, Chakesangs, Tangkhuls, Mao, Maram, etc. There are 29, 30 tribes among the Nagas, but there is an umbrella tribe of Nagas. Similarly, there is an umbrella tribe of the Baloch, which has many tribes under it. Traditionally, they've been fighting separately and carrying out sporadic attacks. In 2018, they got themselves together again under an umbrella organization called BRAS, BRAS, that is Baloch, Raji, Ajoy, Sangar, loosely translated as Baloch National Movement. That happened in 2018. Just a week or 10 days back, they announced that now they are going to coordinate by setting up a unified military command. Because it's only through a unified military command, they said, and I will read out a statement from them in a while, it's only through a unified military command that they could achieve real results. Now, we don't know whether this train hijacking has been carried out by a uniformed military command or not, but it looks like it is so far the most spectacular action carried out by the Baloch rebels. Now, BRAS, who are the organizations under BRAS? I told you just a week or 10 days back, they announced that they were forming a unified military command. That is Baloch Liberation Army, as you would imagine. Baloch Liberation Front. In fact, the leader of the Baloch Liberation Front was the prime mover of BRAS, that is Dr. Allah Nazar Baloch. Then there was also Bashir Zeib of Baloch Liberation Army, Gulzar Imam of Baloch Republican Army. Effectively, therefore, all the Baloch groups and some Sindhi groups as well, Sindhi radical groups as well have joined. Now, we have to understand one thing very carefully. Most times when we talk of terrorism, militancy, insurgency these days, the element of religion comes in. In any case, what's the motivation? What's the motivation that inspires people to risk their lives and do these desperate things? Traditionally, in the past, it used to come, the revolutionary fervor would come from mostly left ideology. Sometimes it came from freedom movements. But mostly these days, if you look at the global terror situation, and I will read you some data from Global Terror Index. The latest report for this for 2025 has just been released. Most of it comes from an Islamic fervor. Most of it is Islamists. In fact, I prefer using Islamists to Islamic, because it's Islamism, political Islamism, that gives ideological basis to many of these current terrorist groups across the world who make the most news. The Baloch are entirely Muslim or almost entirely Muslim. I think it's safe to say entirely Muslim. But the ideological fuel of their groups is not Islam. It's not religion. If anything, I would describe their ideology as left ethno-nationalism. Their ideology is still deeply rooted in the Marxism that their forefathers learned from the Soviets during the 50s and the 60s, because the first phase of Baloch insurgency started in 1947. That's when the Khan of Kalat, the ruler of the region, he decided not to join Pakistan, was subdued, was forced to join. Lots of Baloch got angry. That was the first insurgency that was put down. But when you put down an insurgency, it leaves a lot of angry people, because a lot of families have lost their people, particularly in an area where blood feuds are part of the tribal tradition. 1962 onwards, Ayub Khan decided that all of Pakistan was one province, because he worried that if he holds elections tomorrow, then East Pakistan, being the largest province or having the larger population than any province, will get the maximum number of seats. So he declared all of Pakistan to be one province. That triggered another round of insurgency in Balochistan that went on from 1962 to 1969. That was fully aided, abetted and equipped by the Soviet Union, because by that time Pakistan was an American ally in American-led security alliances with the idea, at least notionally, of fighting communism, fighting the spread of communism. So for Soviet Union, Pakistan was now an enemy state, and they were very happy to harbor these leftist insurgencies and also to train and indoctrinate the original leaders of the Baloch insurgency into Marxist thought. That thought still continues. That's why in all these Baloch attacks, all their literature, all the stuff they say, they produce very sophisticated videos and statements. You will find almost no, in fact, I would say zero use of Islam as a fuel for what they are doing as their ideology. So I will call them left ethno-nationalists. Now I told you two things happened just now, and that sets the context for this train hijack, for understanding this train hijack. So one was this BRAS, the organization, saying that they are going to have a unified military command so that these different groups are not carrying out their own chota operations here and there. And even the state then, the government then, Pakistani army is very powerful. If they get around to one leader or two leaders or one group, they can subdue that. So they decided that one, they will have a unified command. Yet at the same time, they will not have a command headquarters, one leader, because that's the mistake. I've seen many interviews that they've given to media people who go to Baloch areas. They've said that we've learned our lessons from LTTE in Sri Lanka. LTTE made a mistake in concentrating everything in Jaffna under one leader and a high command. Once the Sri Lankan armed forces were able to decimate that, then LTTE was over. So they like to be scattered physically but united in their action. So that was one. The second thing that happened is just about a week earlier, Global Terrorism Index, that is brought out by Institute of Economics and Peace at Sydney, and which tracks terrorism incidents across the world through the year. They came out with their report for 2025. That report, if you look at the rankings, Pakistan has been ranked number 2 for global terrorist activity within the country, not for activity emanating from the country outside into other countries, say India, for example, being the usual victim. No, for terrorism, impact of terrorism within the country, Pakistan is number 2 in the world. Who's number 1? It's Burkina Faso. Pakistan number 2, Syria number 3, Mali number 4, Niger number 5, and then you go on. I'm sure some of you will ask, where is India? So India is at number 14, but a very, very low level, because see this graphic from this report. This tells you that 11 countries, the first 11 countries on this list account for 86% of all deaths from terrorism in the year 2024. Last year in Pakistan, all kinds of terror has gone up, but a lot of it is in the frontier region. So Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, for example, has become very active, has carried out spectacular actions at regular intervals. They've also attacked the armed forces. If you see this other graphic also from Global Terror Index report, see this graphic, it tells you who the attacks have targeted. And you see it's color coded. So you see the largest number of attacks in Pakistan have been over police people, then over military people, then over civilians and the rest. The number of attacks just from the Baloch have risen almost 50% in the last year, which means they've accounted for almost 1,000 attacks compared to 517 the previous year. And fatalities have also gone up, and different Baloch groups have taken responsibility or claimed responsibility for that. So this report has to be read in conjunction with this spectacular incident of the train hijack. Now this train, I know you've been all watching this, it's called Jaffar Express. So why is it called Jaffar Express? Because everything that's happening today is rooted someplace else, in some other periods. Jaffar Express is named after a prominent Pakistani leader of the past, Mir Jaffar Khan Jamali. Mir Jaffar Khan Jamali was very much an integral part of the Pakistan movement. He was a friend of Muhammad Ali Jinnah's, and you know how elites stay in power from generation to generation, particularly in the subcontinent. Zafrullah Jamali was a friend of Jinnah. His nephew later, nephew Mir Zafrullah Khan Jamali, he became the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the 15th Prime Minister of Pakistan between 2002 and 2004. That was under General Musharraf, so it must have been a partyless situation. How much of a Prime Minister he was, we can always guess, but how much of a prime minister any prime minister of Pakistan is at any point of time. And then his cousin, Mir Jaffar Khan Jamali's son, Taj Muhammad Jamali, he also became Chief Minister of Balochistan. He twice served as Chief Minister of Balochistan, the 5th Chief Minister and the 12th Chief Minister. It's after that patriarch, Mir Jaffar Khan Jamali, that this train is named. Now, this train initially was running from Quetta to Rawalpindi. Then it was extended to Peshawar. See the route of the train. It's very circuitous. That's why it's 34 hours, because it also, not only does it connect the two biggest cities, urban centers in tribal Pakistan, along Pakistan's western frontier. It comes all the way through Punjab, in fact, going through almost all the urban centers of Punjab, even including Lahore. One reason is if you only have one or two trains, they must go everywhere. And second, it's almost impossible and totally unfeasible to build a railway line sort of straight from Peshawar to Quetta, because if anything, the terrain is impossible to navigate. That's the reason this train goes from Peshawar into Rawalpindi, goes up to Lahore, runs through Punjab, and then comes back in, crosses the Indus River and comes into Balochistan. In fact, shortly after it came into Balochistan, near the town of Sibi, which is not really a big town, but still significant given how thinly populated Balochistan is, with about 2,500 to 3,000 people. That is somewhere where this train has been hijacked, generally in what might be called the Bolan region. I will read out some statements for you. One from the Baloch Liberation Army. They've said, and I quote, "All hundreds of hostages will be executed, and the responsibility for this bloodshed will solely lie with the occupying forces." There is expression of dismay and disappointment by many Pakistani Baloch leaders who are in the mainstream, who are not separatists by themselves. So Akhtar Mengal, who's the leader of Balochistan National Party and formerly Chief Minister of Balochistan. Akhtar Mengal told Devdatta Chakravarti, our correspondent who tracks Pakistan very closely, he says, and I quote, there is no longer state control in Balochistan. They have lost this war completely and irreversibly. Instead of listening, they mocked us, fueling a system of oppression, looting and bloodshed. Every government has played a role in the genocide of Baloch people. Maulana Fazlur Rahman, leader of Jamiyat-e-Ulema, JEU, Fazl, no surprise there, named after him. He said, look, UN may not, he said, look, things are so bad in Balochistan that UN could potentially recognize Balochistan as a separate country. Now, those things don't happen like that, but for him to say this, he's a consequential figure in Pakistani politics. For him to say this is important. And Akhtar Mengal, again chairman of BNP, he says, and I quote, while there may not be an official referendum on independence, one can assert with confidence that given the opportunity, the majority would not choose to stay with Pakistan. And he said this sense of alienation, he says, and I quote again, fueled by a sense of political and social estrangement. Now, in conclusion, I will share two more maps for you from the Global Terror Index report. See the next two graphics, again from Global Terror Impact report. The first of these is total terrorism deaths by country. And this is for 2023. Two charts like this, two graphics like this, 2023 and 2024. And once again, the color, the more red it is, the worse it is, the more green it is, the better it is. Then the next graphic, which is kind of a logical next step from this, that is distribution of deaths from terrorism by country. And that's where you will see Burkina Faso accounts for 20% of all deaths, Pakistan 14%, Niger at 12%, Syria 10%, so on and so forth. In this list of 10, Russia comes 10th. Russia comes 10th, accounting for 3% of all deaths from terrorism across the world. The rest of the world counts for 14% of all deaths, which means these 10 top of the pops, unfortunately I'm using that expression, these 10 top of the pops account for 86% of all terror deaths this year, and Pakistan is number 2 there. And then you can see one more graphic that gives you largest increases in deaths from terrorism. And once again, you can see that the largest increase is for Niger, but the second largest increase is for Pakistan. The increase is by 333 lives. So having said this, I will repeat for the 100th time, and I think if you count the number of times this is repeated by people across the world who watch the situation of terrorism, strategic affairs. So once again, that immortal line from Hillary Clinton, you can't keep snakes in your backyard hoping they will only bite your neighbors. So Pakistan is now paying for this. I'm also sharing with you a link of the entire global terror impact report. Please take a close look. It is very informative.